What's going on, everybody? So a couple days ago, I put up a poll asking you guys what you wanted me to do for my next tier list video. Solo queue Legends won, and I'm not going to waste your time, so let's get right into it. Up first, we have Bangalore, who is rather good at controlling the flow of a fight with her smokes and can alleviate a lot of pressure for you and your teammates. Her passive double time can be quite useful at escaping or for that extra space speed, and with double Mozam in the meta, that's really good. Her ultimate is also a powerful deterrent, which can push enemy teams away from you or in some cases into you, which can lead to free KP. A tier. Next is Fuse, who is another legend that can be super pesky at creating space and forcing the enemy out of cover. Nades are often the most underutilized thing in Apex, and having them spammed at you can be near impossible to deal with at times. Fuse can double stack on throwables, which makes him a very good aggressive legend. What pushes him into where I'm putting him is his level 2 upgrade, Ringmaster, which allows this aggressive guy to have intel, which is probably one of the most important things while solo queuing. A tier. Next is Ashe, who can actually give pretty good intel with her passive Marked for Death, which highlights every death box less than 3 minutes old. She can also interact with death boxes who were taken out by another squad to find their location, which can all be really useful for rotational information. Her ultimate is a solid way to get height, and her tactical is okay at forcing a fight. I think Fuse is the more useful Recon assault legend, so I'm putting her at B tier. Maggie's similar to Fuse with how she can push people out of space with her tactical drill, which tanks walls and shields. We're also in a shotgun meta, and her passive Warlord's Ire allows her to run at holster speed with a shotgun out. This is all really good stuff, and she leans on the more aggressive side with her kit. When you're solo queuing, you have to be confident, but also realistic that your teammates might not be there with you at all times, no matter how much you communicate. She's a solid add to any team. B tier. I state this time and time again that Ballistic has one of the best 1v1 tacticals in the game, but it takes a small amount of maneuvering to get off. His sling is pretty valuable with Akimbo P20s and Mozams, and his ultimate does give you golden attachments when you pop ult. This is all very based around fighting, and solo queuing can be often insanely tricky since you don't know the playstyle of who's on your team. I thought about throwing him in D, but honestly, anytime you can get golden Akimbos, even if it's temporary, it's enough to throw him in C tier. Pathfinder is amazing in Season 22. He's a really good option to get the team from A to B and can also make aggressive plays himself. Being able to choose between Survey and Ring Console depending on your comp is awesome, plus 20% damage reduction on his upgrade Zipline Zen gets you where you need to be. The only thing holding him back is that he's a fridge and doesn't have an extra 75 HP to help with that. Rev. A tier. Wraith is really good at alerting you when someone's in your area, phasing out of an uncomfy situation, and moving your team from A to B. The problem with Wraith is not really so much her, it's that power creep has entered Apex over the years, and every phase or port she does is just not as good as every leap, zipline, and lift in the game currently. You could get away playing her, but I have her in C tier. Octane is a very selfish legend and can get out of harm's way, but he brings almost nothing to every fight unless you plan on being a superstar. The pad is okay, but like I said with Wraith before, there's always better options. D tier. Revenant. S tier. I feel like I don't need to explain why being able to leap onto someone with 75 extra HP is obnoxiously strong. If you have remotely any gun skill, you are gonna eat. Horizon is really strong and a fun legend to play. I often find myself beaten up on lower ranks with her, and I do think her abilities fall off the slightest when you climb the higher ranks. She becomes much more susceptible to people beaming her out of the lift or destroying the ultimate instantly. Once you do that with Horizon, she has no kit other than being slippery. She's really strong, but she might not be your best chance to solo queue. B tier. Valkyrie has solid movement and can be useful when it comes to getting to God spot early, but I don't find her particularly useful when in comparison to a lot of these legends solo. There's been rumors she'd be turned into a Recon legend, which may help her out a tad, but for now, I think she's in the C tier. Alter's kit to me feels a bit gimmicky, and in most situations, her tactical isn't super useful unless it's a coordinated attack. Her ultimate Void Nexus can be useful to get out of a bad spot, but it takes a while to kickstart. You can also use the ultimate while knocked, which can give her a good reset, but stinks you can't use it when your knockdown shield is up. C tier. Recons are honestly a really great way to set yourself up for success solo queuing, especially when you're first getting your bearings down. And while some of these might not be the best overall legends, they do a lot for you and your team. Starting off with Bloodhound. Bloodhound is really good at letting you know a lot of intel from his passive, which tracks enemy footsteps, and tactical, which highlights enemies when you pick them up on scan. This could be crucial for team fighting and knowing where to rotate. His ultimate falls off a little now that all recons highlight enemies in red, which is exactly what his ult does with a slight speed boost, but nonetheless, he's very convenient and easy to use. B tier. Next is Crypto, which got some really good buffs in Season 22 and actually makes him a super viable solo character. His level 2 upgrade off the grid allows him to go invisible, which is kind of goofy, but insanely strong if you need to lay low for a little bit to reset to get banners. Crypto can be very effective at getting intel and initiating fights, and while he is a slower paced legend, it's probably better to play slow in ranked when you are solo queuing. A tier. Seer has fallen off quite a bit in the meta and is a recon legend, but he's still somewhat useful. With his passive, he can hear and visualize the heartbeats of enemies within 50 meters when aiming down sights, and his level 3 upgrade allows him to have a double tactical. His ultimate is also great at alerting you who's in the proximity and also deterring the enemy to fight for a good while. Currently the worst legend in the class, but also not a terrible solo queue choice. C tier. The legend that has caught a lot of people's eyes in Season 22 is Vantage. I found myself personally abusing this legend as she does pretty much everything. Powerful ult to deter and initiate fights? Check. Movement comparable to a Pathfinder grapple or a Revenant leap? Check. Passive that gives you shield information on the entire team and an upgrade which allows you to scan ring console as well as survey beacon? Check. She really does just about everything and is one of the most well-rounded legends in Apex. Her problem has always been that her kit falls off in the endgame. Does that really matter when you're top 5 with 3 to 6 KP from abusing a busted ultimate that can 2-tap blue and leave purple shields 3 HP? Not in the slightest. S tier. Supports can be a cheat code to solo queuing it, as you'll often find out that you're playing with a duo who will calm with each other and leave you out of all the decision making. In this case, you're the quote bad player, but you can make up for it by playing a support legend. Starting off with the Gibraltar, who may actually be the worst option of support legends. His bubble is solid, but he has been power creeped by a lot of legends. It also doesn't help that his arm shield is a hop up and he's a very chunky boy. D tier. Next is Lifeline, who's really good at fast resets and keeps the team in tip-top shape. It can be a little exhausting playing back and having to non-stop play babysitter for a team, and sometimes almost unmanageable depending on who you get queued with, which is why it's tricky to rate her. I decided to put her in B tier mainly as the success with the Lifeline heavily varies on who you play with. Next is Mirage, who can be really good against lower tier players, but overall isn't that useful, especially when legends like Lifeline or Newcastle exist. His bamboozlers are fun to use, but most experienced players will sniff it out immediately. D tier. Now, a lot of you might not think this, but I think one of the best solo queue legends in all of Apex is Loba. Her bracelet is a tool for absolutely finessing your opponents for resets and also a tool of getting into position to be aggressive. The best part of Loba's kit is the fact that you can get yourself and your teammates their comfort weapons almost immediately with her black market off drop. With Akimbo Mosivs being one of the strongest weapons in Apex, I think it's very strong to assure yourself these bad boys and possibly hammers off rip. Trust me, this legend makes everyone's life easy and RP gains as effective as possible. S tier. Newcastle is dominating the ALGS scene and high tier ranked and probably moves up to A to S tier if this was a regular ranked tier list. With solo queue in mind and Newcastle being a very heavy team oriented legend, he might be on the more difficult side to play, especially since he's a very chunky boy. Kid is also very good at locking down the fort and resetting, but you're better off playing with friends if you're going to try this legend. C tier. Conduit has been toned down in the meta, but still really useful, not only for yourself, but for your team. Her tactical gives extra shields to you and one other teammate, which can make a massive difference in a fight. And her ultimate can really deter teams from pushing you or giving you just enough time to reset and get health. Her tactical got nerfed over the seasons, but it's still very effective. B tier. Controller legends have it pretty solid this season, as well as getting an extra bar of shield anytime they're in zone up to red shield. Caustic is really good at locking it down mid and late game, but man, is it miserable being a chunky character and running into the open. If you can convince your team to lock up a building with him, he's pretty solid, and you should be able to get some good placement. But he's not the best when it comes to fighting, but he can stop a lot of aggressive pushes. C tier. Next is Watson, who got really good buffs in Season 22, with charge buffs to her ultimate at the level 3 upgrade. She's a much better option than Caustic with a much smaller hitbox. Her ultimate also makes her a very good option to play in more open areas as you won't get nade or ult spammed. B tier. Rampart may be the scariest legend next to Vantage in Season 22. Not only does she get the extra bar of shield if she's in zone, she almost immediately gets her ultimate, which can be absolutely devastating early game. She can also stall out fights with her walls, which do amplified damage and act as cover. She's great for pretty much setting up anywhere in zone and is not the legend you want to try and push. A tier, but I honestly contemplated putting her at S tier. Lastly, we have Catalyst, which is an overall super solid legend. She has solid rotation with her Dark Veil ultimate, a passive which allows you to reinforce walls, a tactical that draws out fights because you have to shoot it out. She's a very versatile legend and can accompany a lot of different playstyles from your randoms, but nothing over the top. B tier. I solo queue a lot of ranked and pubs, and these are just my opinions. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.